Hello, and welcome to the Three Questions Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm your host, Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Now, did you know that almost 75% of startups fail due to mismatched partnerships? If you want to avoid the same fate, stay tuned. What's our topic today? The three questions business owners should ask before taking on an investor. Thank you for taking time to check us out. And if you enjoyed this episode of the Three Questions Podcast, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. On this episode of the podcast, we're kicking off an exciting new series focusing on key questions business owners should ask at different stages of their journey, from securing investors to granting equity and eventually selling. Now, in this episode, we're going to dive into the three questions business owners should ask before taking on an investor. Joining us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is Emmanuelle Subar Litvinov. She is a partner with the Entrepreneur Lawyers in Fort Lauderdale, and she's a dedicated business attorney who specializes in mergers and acquisitions, private securities offering, equity financing, and partnership structuring. Emmanuelle, we made it here. Thank you for making time for the podcast today.
Wayne, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Uh, I guess we should also just mention that, again, this is going to be a series that we're going to run. We're going to release one episode each of the next 3 months, and we're going to provide some, I think, much needed clarity and guidance to help our listeners today confidently navigate securing investors, granting equity, and eventually selling their businesses. Actually, and you think about it, you are raised in a third generation family back in Michigan, a third generation business. I can't help but think that being involved in the family business, at least at a relatively young age, has given you at least some valuable perspective when it comes to helping entrepreneurs build, protect, and ultimately, selling their ventures.
Wayne, that's an understatement. My foundation was built on my family's three-generation business that's 103 years old. I started filing at the age of 11, then ran delivery routes. I managed AR and AP. I worked on the plant floor and even sat in on union negotiations with my dad. So all of that gave me a really full picture of how operations, sales, and financials truly connect and what every single decision ripples throughout a business. Those experiences I find really help me make me pragmatic and solutions oriented based on the conversations I heard around the dinner table while there every day. And I took those lessons into how I counsel entrepreneurs today.
So you bring what I would call a strategic solution-oriented mindset, and that is really how you help entrepreneurs build and protect their ventures. And you serve clients from startups to mature companies, and again across industries like technology, manufacturing, real estate. I'm sure there's other examples. Now, here's one for you. According to the Harvard Business Review, something like 75% of startup businesses fail due to mismanaged partnerships. And I suspect that choosing the right investor, Emmanuel, is more than just about the money, about the capital.
Wayne, you're absolutely right. Capital is only the beginning. The real question is whether that investor or partner is the right long-term partner for your business. That mismatched investor can be as damaging as a mismatched co-founder or a mismatched partner in life, right? They may push you in directions that don't fit your vision, or worse, tend to pick fights or create conflicts that stall your growth altogether. It is really like a marriage. So I tell founders to think of it in terms of a scorecard. I like using metrics and SOPs. So first, kind of vision and horizon. Is this person aligned with where you're heading, or will they pressure you into a quick exit that you don't want? Second, value add. Beyond the capital, do they bring this strategic guidance? Do they bring key introductions? Is that what you need? Or any credibility with potential future investors if that's on your horizon? Third, terms. So are there economics and control provisions market standard, or are there red flags like harsh liquidation preferences? And finally, references. When you're bringing in an investor, talk to other founders that they've backed, not just the success stories, but also the one that struggled. You'll
Mhm.
learn quickly if this investor shows up when things get tough or if you're the one that needs to run from them.
It's almost like you had to part-time attorney, part-time therapist in a way.
It truly is. It truly is. But it's part of the fun.
I'm envisioning the conversations with the business owner, and he's talking about the brother-in-law or the spouse that are involved in the business and lamenting the fact that they're involved with them, and you having to kind of give them the reality check. So it's not merely drafting documents, that's for darn sure.
No, it's not. And my husband and I both grew up in family businesses, and I'll say that we have both agreed to never get into business together.
My better half said the exact same thing to me. She said when we moved out here to California, and probably even back when we were in Canada, the conversation came up, but definitely when we were here in California. And after the kids were old enough that they were pretty much able on their own, she said to me, I want to go back into the workforce. And then she looked at me, she says, but I don't want to work with you. It was like that boundary was made. She ended up running an airport limousine business for years here, and
Very nice.
yeah.
I
So
didn't know
just
that.
retired at the end of last year, but
Congratulations.
that was a hard and fast line in the sand. I remember
Correct.
it.
We support each other. We're there for each other. We help each other, but we are not
Yeah,
getting into business
we
together.
did not want to have our dinner table conversations focused on whether or not everybody did all their responsibilities that day or whatever.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so we're discussing today the three questions business owners should ask before taking on an investor. I say, Emmanuelle, let's get right at it here. We'll get right to the first question.
But
And again, these questions, I should bring this up, are from the perspective of a business owner, not from myself or Emmanuelle. This is from a business owner coming to Emmanuelle with questions. So here's question number one. I'm in the process of evaluating two potential investors for my business. How will I know that I chose the best one? Manuel, take it away.
so this is where founders really need to flip the script and remember that due diligence goes both ways. These investors aren't just evaluating you. You should also be evaluating them just as carefully. The best investor also isn't usually the one with the biggest check. You really have to look at the entire deal, whose goals, values, and resources tend to align most closely with what your business truly needs. What is your long-term plan? And does that meet your values? So start by mapping out your non-negotiables. Again, it's very similar to a relationship. For one to succeed, think about your non-negotiables. Do you want someone hands-on or someone stays out of your day who stays out of your daily
Mhm.
operations? Again, do you need introductions to customers, talent, or those future investors? Are you looking for a bit more patience, or do you need somebody to push you for an exit in that 3 to 5 year track? And then you look at the track record. What kind of companies have they backed before? Do they reserve capital for follow-on investments, or will you be left fundraising from scratch at every stage? And then, most importantly, again, I mentioned this, what do founders say about working with them? Pick up the phone and call, and especially the ones who didn't have smooth journeys. You need to understand what you're getting into. And then finally, you compare the terms side by side. It won't always be apples to apples. One investor might offer more money, but with strings that kind of choke your flexibility, and you're somebody that needs that freedom. The best choice is often the one who seems to balance the capital, that strategic value, and fair terms in a way that supports you and your company's growth without boxing you in.
So when they're going through this process, and I'm assuming you're going to be involved in the conversation, what kind of red flags uh, do you kind of keep sort of top of mind when you're talking with your clients that they should be watching for when they're going through what I would call investor due diligence? What are the things that kind of jump off the page of you as something to be that would provide, or create what I would call a Spockian eyebrow, if you will?
Of course. So one of the biggest is that misalignment of expectations and goes back to you need to know what you're looking for and what you want. And if you don't know that, you're going to run into a lot many more red flags. So that misalignment of expectations. Also, another red flag is overly aggressive terms. I saw one the other day and where it was they came in, offered a low sum of money for 95% control of the company.
Hmm.
And that is an overly aggressive term based on additional facts that I can't necessarily go into, but that is a situation. Um, Also, watch for behavioral red flags. Do they cancel meetings? Do they avoid answering questions directly or kind of pressure you to move faster than you're ready? And also look at their portfolio history. A lot of this is public records. And if it's not, ask them if they left a trail of broken relationships, if there's a lot of lawsuits or companies that just feel unsupported, that's a sign to pause. Not necessarily stop, but just pause.
All right. Well, listen, Emmanuelle, a great first question response. Let's get on to number two. Is my business structure ready to take on a new investor? Pretty basic, straightforward. Your thoughts?
So that's such a critical question because many smaller businesses aren't, even larger businesses are not investor ready from that structural perspective. Investors typically like to see a corporation, often a Delaware C Corp, because it's clean, familiar, and more tax efficient for investment. So being investor ready, being ready to take on that new investor also means your ownership interests are clearly documented. Your operating agreement or bylaws allows you to for a new class of stock or membership units, depending on the type of entity, and you don't have any lingering ambiguities around who owns what. Make sure that there's no lingering former members that you didn't fully pay out or any disputes still lingering around. If you do not have those pieces in place, an investor won't necessarily walk away, but they will demand concessions that weaken your position and it slows down your deal.
Okay, just as a follow-up to that, no, let's just say you do actually have a client that tells you they want to actually look to bring on an investor, but when you do your due diligence, it's pretty clear to you, and we'll say it's a sole proprietor in this example, or like an LLC. Uh, what steps would you advise a client to take to reorganize without disrupting the operation? Because that's, obviously can be an issue.
So the good news is this is fixable. Often it's as simple as converting the entity into a corporation. It doesn't have to be in Delaware, but it tends to be preferred. But it can just be as simple as converting that entity into the corporation, which can be done through a statutory conversion or a clean transfer of assets. If you're an LLC, you may also want to restructure into a manager managed format instead of the default sometimes is that member managed if the members
Hmm.
are managing.
Hmm.
So you want
Familiar with that
to
one?
restructure into a manager managed format and create kind of these profit interests mechanisms if you want to keep flexibility. So the key here, Wayne, is to do it proactively before you're negotiating term sheets. That way, you control the terms of the reorganization and you don't lose leverage by scrambling under investor pressure. That way, also, if you plan it right, it tends to make the transition much more seamless. Operations continue as normal, employees and customers often don't even notice, and you
It's
come
all
out with
done
a
behind the
structure
scenes.
exactly that investors understand and trust.
Okay, well, let's move right on to the three question, man. We're getting through these pretty quickly and efficiently. So the
The
third,
way I like to do with my billing.
yeah, the way to
Keep the
spoken like
client's interest in mind.
spoken like a true attorney. Um, so question number three, what do I need to do to clean up now? And this is the key part. What do I need to do now to clean up everything so that I don't lose leverage? You mentioned leverage in that last comment. So, losing that ability to negotiate, what kind of things have to be cleaned up?
Yeah, so think of it as a spring cleaning before inviting a guest in, or before inviting a guest into your home. So investors are going to open every single closet, even the very dirty ones. So you want to make sure nothing falls on their head. That
Hmm.
means tightening up your financials. It means buttoning up legal. With this one, a lot of things get overlooked. Every contractor and employee needs to have a signed IP assignment. Every contract needs to be documented. Your corporate minutes, governing documents need to be up to date. And it means your cap table should be accurate. No phantom promises of equity floating around, making sure those former members are removed properly. If you don't clean these things up before diligence, two things happen. So you lose the negotiating leverage that we come back to because the investor now has fix-it items to kind of use against you, and the deal slows down, which kills momentum.
And again, remember that thing we mentioned at the beginning about the fact that 75% of these deals, businesses fail, and it's because of the
Correct.
fact that this part of the corporate structure at this period in time doesn't go well. So just just thinking this through, how important would you say it is? And again, when you're advising clients, you're talking to a business owner, how important is it for them to address the common issues like intellectual property gaps or having these unresolved contracts that could be out there that are not taken care of, that kind of thing. Would you put that into the same category as cleaning up things before proceeding?
Oh, definitely. Think about it. You want the most money you can get, right? And the buyer wants to pay the least. So you want to show how valuable everything you've worked for is.
Hmm.
But what is the buyer really buying if you can't prove it? So this is absolutely essential. Are investing in the value of your company. And if your
Hmm.
intellectual property isn't properly owned by the company, or your key contracts are just handshake deals, or your key customer is a month to month and can terminate at any time, what are they really buying? So here, these unresolved issues create uncertainty, and uncertainty kills deals. If you have contractors who haven't signed those IP assignments, fix that now. Like this is all not just about protecting your value, it's also about your credibility. So investors really want to see that you've thought ahead and protected the foundation of your business that they're about to invest in.
So we're launching this series. So this is episode one of three. You know, I guess I have to ask this one question here. What is one overarching piece of advice you give to an entrepreneur considering investors, and for the sense from the perspective of building a foundation that's sustainable? I mean, there has to be some sort of overarching. You have to be aware of this before proceeding.
Yeah, so I guess my overarching advice is this. Do not treat investment as a goal in itself. Treat
Okay.
it as a tool. So the best companies I've worked with, they're clear that this investment is a means to an end, whether it's that scaling, whether that's building, expanding, and that ties into the very beginning. You need to know what you want. What are your non-negotiables? What are your goals? What's your vision? So the best clients I've seen and succeed in this, they don't chase the investors because it looks glamorous. We take them on strategically when it truly advances their vision. That means also having a plan for that capital. What do you do once you receive that capital? How will it be deployed? What milestones do you intend for it to achieve? And how does that position you for the next stage? It's truly just like in life, it really is about being intentional about who you invite in. You're not just raising money here, you're really shaping the future culture and direction of your business.
So it kind of makes me think of a line that I use probably more than I should, but I think it's applicable, is those who fail to plan to fail. So even
Yes.
putting in an investor, there should be like a eye on the prize later on down the road. So it isn't just a short term. You need to look at the overall long-term results of taking on an investor.
Yeah.
Okay, let's looking ahead. This is everywhere now, and I'm going to talk about AI. How do you see trends like AI-driven startups or remote work influencing investor expectation? I'm going to specifically talk about Florida. I mean, that's your home state. So how do you see that, affecting expectations in Florida's entrepreneurial scene? And what should business owners prepare for with that being the case? Because AI is like driving the bus in so many different ways now.
Yes, of course. And so I will say that I am licensed in Florida and California,
Yes,
but
and
have clients
California,
all
fair enough,
over.
true.
And so I'm seeing this in a lot of different places, but we're seeing a shift into this innovation hub, specifically in Florida, shift into this true innovation hub, and investors' expectations are evolving with that. So with AI-driven startups, California has been big in that. We're seeing much more in Florida lately. Investors are looking harder at defensibility, what's proprietary though, versus what's just built on open models. And then with remote work, they're scrutinizing compliance. How do you handle distributed team? How do you handle employment law, especially across different states? And then also IP protection across borders. And then for Florida founders, since you asked me about Florida, I'll say that that means two things, right? First, you need to demonstrate you've thought about that scalability and governance in a modern context, because Florida is kind of newer to that world. And then second, you should be ready for investors who expect you to move faster because the competition for capital here is hot and is quick. So you need to be able to keep up. But the upside, with that said, is huge. Florida in itself is a huge magnet for capital. Private securities has been nonstop all summer, but preparation is everything.
So, so again, I think you made a key point there about how things are moving faster. Investors want quick results. So that just goes back to again being prepared, before you start making the world aware that you're looking for investors. You want to have everything cleaned up as much as possible and be ready.
Correct.
All right. Well, listen, Emmanuelle, for those who are watching us here today, we've included all your contact information on the screen. But we have a lot of folks that listen on Apple or Spotify. They're in their cars or they're got their phones, earplugs in their phones, walking around somewhere, maybe that late at night or whatever the case may be. For those folks who are listening in, what is the best way for them to contact you? You've got lots of great information today. No doubt people are going to want to contact you. What's the best way?
Sure. So the best way is either by phone, 305-686-5159, or by email. Again, my name is Emmanuelle Subar Litvinov. My email is elitvinov@telds.legal. TELDS stands for The Entrepreneur Lawyers. And then you can find us online at theentrepreneurlawyers.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you can't spell my last name, just take a screenshot of the podcast, and it'll be easier to just OCR it that way.
No, well, it's not too hard to spell. Emmanuelle, pretty straightforward. Subar, Subar, Litvinov.
Thank you, Wayne.
And Emmanuelle is a partner with the
Yes.
Florida Entrepreneur Firm, and she joined us from beautiful Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Emmanuelle, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I look forward to bringing you the Three Questions podcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channel. And to receive a notification of when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Lastly, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we will see you soon.